Good evening, friends. This is Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer, Treasury Consulting, and also a venture capitalist. As we speak, Treasury Consulting is a multinational headquartered group based out Singapore. We are a multinational hedge fund who operates from Singapore. Please be note that Treasury Consulting cover multiple asset classes and at the same point of time taking positions in various countries of the globe. But like I repeated many a times, and I would continue to repeat all the times, which is we are a proprietary hedge fund. By proprietary, I mean no third party. I repeat, no third party can invest capital in our fund. Treasury Consulting do not ask any third party to invest capital in our fund. In this today video, I would be covering briefly about one of the most, I would say, widely used structure in the world of investment banking. But unfortunately, I have seen enough books in my life, and this structure is not being covered in 99% of the books, including CFA, which is Certified Financial Analyst. I know that the meaning of CFA is Charter Financial Analyst, but I always call CFA as Certified Financial Analyst. We all understand that there are two forms of banking. Number one is the investment banking. Number two is the merchant banking. Unfortunately, majority of the people do not understand an exact difference between investment banking and other banking. But investment banking job is to raise the money for their clients and forget. This is what the job of investment banking. While the role of merchant banking is to continuously support their client even in the best times and even in the worst times. Henceforth, one thing which we really need to understand, which we really need to be apparently confirmed, is that when we speak about investment banking, the roles and responsibilities are completely different as compared to when we speak about merchant banking. Now, in investment banking, what happens? There are two kind of desks we have. Now, when I using a word investment banking and the two type of desk, I would like to make one thing very clear. I repeat, very clear, that I am talking about the most sophisticated, I repeat, the most sophisticated investment banking models which somehow are in United States of America and bit of Europe, you can say. Asia, including Singapore, Dubai, and Hong Kong, do not have the sophisticated investment banking models. That's a separate thing that the compromised media always trying to hype few Asian countries, but the hard reality is that the sophisticated investment banking models can only be found in US, to an extent. I repeat, to an extent in Europe. One of the model which the investment banking work is the equity swap arrangement. I repeat, equity swap arrangement. Before I move in a very technical tone, then equity swap arrangement is something in which there are two, or in many cases more than two parties. Unfortunately, people feel that in equity swap arrangement there are only two parties. No, there are more than two parties because two parties cannot conclude the equity swap arrangement. The following are the parties in the equity swap arrangement. Number one is definitely the equity swap receiver, who is considered to be a long in that swap. I repeat, equity swap receiver, who is considered to be a long in the swap. Number two is the equity swap pair, who is considered to be a short in the swap. Actually, I have seen few books and they mentioned wrongly. They said that equity swap pair is the actual player in the swap who owns the stock. No, there is no hard edged line as far as this statement is concerned. It is not mandatory. I repeat, it is not mandatory that equity swap pair always owns the stock in the hand. He may be or he might not be. But there is no hard edged line. But unfortunately, people feel that there is a hard edged line, which technically speaking is not always correct. Third player which we have in the equity swap arrangement is the custodian. Now, when I use the word custodian, I'm referring to the big players like State Street, probably BNY Mellon, Bank of New York Mellon, and other big player in the custody business. Sometimes what happen that we have a single custodian, so which means equity receiver and equity pair both are having their operational account with State Street. Probably one have us with State Street Singapore, one have a State Street US. Ultimately the counterparty is same, which is State Street, right? You are facing the State Street. But sometimes the situation is little complicated, which means the equity swap receiver is having State Street as a custodian, while equity swap pair is having BNY Mellon. And sometimes things are more complicated: State Street Singapore and BNY Mellon London, which means not only both the counterparties differ, but also their locations differ. Now, you must be thinking that why I am including a word location. I am including a word location because the jurisdictional clause, I repeat, the jurisdictional clause differs. Because if equity swap receiver is dealing with State Street Singapore, then State Street loves, rather mandate, to have Singapore as a jurisdiction clause, which in legal parlance is also known as exclusive jurisdiction clauses. While if equity swap pair is interacting with BNY, BNY Mellon London, then they love to have English court of law. In this eventuality, the exclusive jurisdiction do not work because one party wants Singapore jurisdiction, one party want English jurisdiction. It do not work. It means without saying, I repeat, without saying, technically speaking, you move to non-exclusive jurisdiction. Last party in the game is definitely the hedging party. Now, unfortunately, I have seen few books who mentioned that equity swap receiver is always the hedging party. No, guys, it could be equity swap pair also. It depends how their portfolio shapes up. By hedging party, I mean they takes care of their positions in stock market, could be CFDs, contract for differences, could be, I would say, futures, or sometimes more than that. To conclude, we have five players at least in the game: equity swap receiver, his custodian, like in this example, it is State Street Singapore; equity swap pair, his custodian, like in this example, BNY Mellon London; and last, the hedging party. Please take a note of that. There is another beautiful thing which we are having in the equity swap agreements or arrangements, which is the role of ISDA. ISDA means International Swap and Derivative Association. It is an advisory body who advises people across the globe. But unfortunately, majority of the people do not listen to ISDA. Like I told you in one of my earlier videos that in this eventuality, you need to sign the ISDA agreement. But there is a little twist in the game. The twist is that ISDA agreements on paper, I repeat, ISDA agreements on paper covering all asset classes, but the reality is that ISDA have multiple documentation as far as the asset classes are concerned. So ISDA 2002 Master Service Agreement, I repeat, ISDA 2002 Master Service Agreement directly or indirectly designed to handle the foreign exchange and currency transactions. In fact, you would be surprised to know it is not even designed to handle non-deliverable transactions. And I would be discussing separately about this. In fact, the current MSA, which means the Master Service Agreement which we are using, is not even designed to handle non-deliverable transaction, which is the largest FX market in the world as we speak. For equities, you need to sign a separate ISDA equity agreement. Alongside, you need to sign or you need to mandate both the parties, they need to mandate 2002 ISDA equity definitions, rather ISDA equity derivative definitions. So let me tell you that, guys, ISDA publishes a set of definitions every at a periodic basis. Ideally, it should be yearly, but unfortunately, it is periodic. Currently, we have two set of definitions. One is ISDA 2002 equity derivative definitions, and one is ISDA 2006 definitions. Actually, ISDA 2006 definition is around 100 pages, 120 pages, and I have the document. It is purely designed for an FX standpoint, which means the foreign exchange transaction, LIBOR, OIS, basis swap, CCIRS, and all these kind of structures. While ISDA 2002 equity derivative definitions is predominantly designed to handle equity as an asset class. So if you are entering into equity swap arrangements, I repeat, if you are entering into equity swap arrangements with your counterparty, of course your custodians are in picture. Do remember that you signed ISDA equity derivative agreement plus the 2002 ISDA definitions. Please do take a note of that. This is really very important. The same applies to ISDA 2002 Master Service Agreement also, because if you are signing this and you're not linked with 2006 ISDA definitions, then this is also not a correct thing. Please do take a note of that. Guys, please do remember that there are three things which are very important as far as the equity swap arrangements are concerned. They could either be cash settled, they could either be physically settled. By physically settled means both the parties, equity swap payer and equity swap receiver, would be doing their transaction. Equity swap payer wants the stock to depreciate, it should come down, while the receiver wants stock to appreciate, it should come up. If the stock appreciates, the receiver would have a major benefit than the payer. While if it depreciates, the payer always have an upper edge compared to the receiver. Please do take a note that the equity swap agreement can be of three types. Please take a note of that, and this is really complicated. It could be American equity swap arrangements. By American equity swap arrangements, I mean at any given point of time. I repeat, at any given point of time, once the contract is done, technically speaking, the hard period is done, because nowadays we have two concepts. One is hard period and soft period. So once the hard period is done, in this eventuality, you can wind up the contract at any given point of time. European equity swaps agreement means that you need to wait by the time the maturity is not coming, or either party defaults. If this is the case, in this eventuality, you can wind up the transaction. Number three is the Bermudian, which means that you will set up few valuation dates. Probably suppose your contract is of 5 years, because remember that equity swap agreements always long dated contracts. They never be the short dated contracts. They never be 1 month, 2 month kind of contracts. They are always the long dated contract. And it is sometimes also known as auto rollover. Few people call this as auto rollover also, and I don't think this is wrong as well. So please do note that in Bermudian you will set few dates. On this date, the party will take up a call whether they would like to wind up or they would like to continue. Always remember, please always remember, whether this is a European, whether this is American, or whether this is Bermudian, there is an appropriate procedure. I repeat, there is an appropriate procedure to wind up your transaction at any given point of time. Wind up can be done by the payer side. Wind up can be done from the receiver side. This is Rahul Magan from Treasury Consulting Group. You knew my personal number, +91 9899 242 978. I repeat, +91 9899 242 978. Thank you guys. Have a great time ahead.